The group text lit up my phone at 9:30 on a Tuesday morning. My mother had sent it to the family chat. Everyone invited to my sister Stephanie's wedding at a luxury Napa Valley vineyard. My brother's name, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, everyone except mine. I texted back asking if it was a mistake. Mom called immediately. Her voice was cold and matter-of-fact. Stephanie didn't want me there. I'd ruin her moment, steal attention. I sat frozen in my apartment, staring at my phone. Finally, I whispered 2 words. I understand. The silence after I hung up felt like drowning. I sat on my couch for what must have been an hour, my phone still clutched in my hand, watching the family group chat explode with excitement. Aunt Patricia asking about dress codes. My cousin Brandon joking about the open bar. My brother asking if he could bring a +1. Everyone celebrating this $650,000 spectacle while I'd been erased from it completely. I need to give you context. My sister Stephanie is 25 years old, 3 years younger than me. Growing up, she was always the golden child. The pretty one, the fun one, the one who could do no wrong in our mother Carol's eyes. I was the responsible daughter. The one who got straight A's, while Stephanie barely passed her classes. The one who worked 2 jobs to pay for college, while Stephanie dropped out twice and moved back home both times. I graduated top of my class with a marketing degree, landed a job at a respected firm, saved aggressively, and bought my own apartment by 26. I was proud of myself, even if my family never seemed to notice. Stephanie, meanwhile, lived at home until she was 23, working part-time at a boutique and going out every weekend. Then she met Derek at a charity gala our mother dragged her to. Derek comes from serious money. His family owns a commercial real estate empire worth hundreds of millions. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within a year, they were planning a wedding that cost more than most people's houses. I've been with my boyfriend Marcus for 3 years. He's a high school history teacher, kind and patient and genuine. He makes $38,000 a year and loves his job. My family has never taken our relationship seriously. At family dinners, my mother would ask Stephanie about Derek's latest business deal while barely acknowledging Marcus when he spoke. My father Thomas would nod politely at Marcus but never engaged him in real conversation. They saw him as beneath us somehow, even though he had more integrity in his little finger than Derek had in his entire body. The phone rang again 3 days after my mother's call. This time it was my father. His voice was quiet, almost ashamed. "Amanda, I need to talk to you about the wedding. I already know I'm not invited, Dad." He sighed heavily. "I argued with your mother about it. I really did. But Stephanie was adamant. She said if you came, she'd call the whole thing off." My stomach dropped. "What?" "She told us that you always have to be the center of attention, that you're jealous of her happiness, that having you there would ruin her day." I couldn't breathe. "Dad, I've barely spoken to Stephanie in 6 months. How could I possibly ruin her day?" Another long pause. "I know, sweetheart, I know. But your mother won't budge, and honestly, I can't risk Stephanie calling off this wedding. Derek's family has been so generous, and this is a huge opportunity for our family's connections. So you're choosing her over me. Amanda, please, be the bigger person here. You've always been so mature, so understanding. Can't you just let this one go?" I hung up without responding. That's when I understood the full picture. This wasn't just about being excluded from a wedding. My entire family had accepted a narrative about me that was completely false, and not one of them had bothered to question it. My father, who I thought at least cared about me, was too weak to stand up for his own daughter. They'd all chosen Stephanie's lies and her wealthy fiancé over the truth. I called Marcus. When he arrived at my apartment an hour later, I was still sitting in the same spot on the couch staring at nothing. He held me while I cried for the first time since this started. Then he made me tea and sat across from me, his teacher face on, the one that said he was ready to problem solve. "We could take a vacation that weekend," he suggested. "Get away from all of this." I shook my head. "That feels like hiding." My best friend Harper called that evening. She'd somehow heard through the family grapevine what had happened. Harper and I met freshman year of college, bonded over being scholarship kids in a school full of trust fund babies, and had been inseparable ever since. She was furious on my behalf. This is absolutely insane, Amanda. Your family is toxic. You know that, right? I'm starting to really see it, I admitted. Then Harper said something that changed everything. If they don't want you at the wedding, create your own moment. Show them what they're missing. What do you mean? I mean, stop playing small. Stop being the good daughter who takes whatever scraps they throw you. Do something bold. The idea started forming then, still hazy but gaining shape. Marcus and I had been talking casually about marriage for months. Nothing serious, just the way couples do when they've been together a while and know it's heading somewhere permanent. We'd joked about eloping, about skipping the big wedding drama, and just making it about us. What if we actually did it? What if we got married in Italy during Stephanie's wedding weekend? Marcus looked uncertain when I first proposed it. Amanda, I don't know. That's expensive, and I'd have to take time off during the school year. I have savings, I said, and vacation days I've never used. We could do something small and intimate. Just us. Not to compete with Stephanie. Just to create our own beautiful moment while they're all celebrating without me. He studied my face for a long moment. You're sure this is what you want? Not just a reaction to being hurt? I'm sure. I don't want to hide or feel ashamed. I want to marry you, and I want it to be on our terms, in a place that's beautiful and meaningful. I want something real. He smiled then and took my hand. Okay, let's go to Italy. I spent the next week planning in secret. I found a small wedding package at a villa in Tuscany. The photos online took my breath away. Rolling hills covered in vineyards, cypress trees lining ancient stone pathways, golden sunlight that seemed to make everything glow. The package included an officiant, a photographer, and access to the villa grounds for 4 hours. It cost $3,000, which felt extravagant to me but was less than Stephanie was spending on her wedding cake alone. Marcus and I coordinated our time off. We'd fly out the Thursday before Stephanie's Saturday wedding, have our ceremony on Saturday afternoon in Italy, which would be Saturday morning in California, and spend a week honeymooning in Tuscany. It felt perfect. Intimate. Hours. Then my cousin Jennifer reached out. Jennifer was 32, always kind, but not someone I was particularly close to. She'd been invited to Stephanie's engagement party, the one I'd also been excluded from. Her message was cautious. Hey Amanda, can we talk? There's something you should know. We met for coffee on a Wednesday afternoon. Jennifer looked nervous, stirring her latte obsessively before finally looking up at me. I've been going back and forth about whether to tell you this, but I'd want to know if I were you. Tell me what? She pulled out her phone and opened a video. At Stephanie's engagement party, she gave a speech. Amanda, it was bad. She said terrible things about you. She turned the phone toward me and pressed play. The video was shaky, clearly taken by someone in the crowd, but the audio was clear enough. Stephanie stood at a microphone, Derek beside her, our mother beaming in the front row. She was talking about how grateful she was for Derek, for finding real love, for having a family that supported her unconditionally. Then she said, I know some people and families can be difficult. My sister Amanda has always struggled with my happiness. She's tried to sabotage my relationships, said awful things about Derek, made family gatherings uncomfortable with her jealousy and drama. So this celebration is for the people who truly support us, who want the best for us, who choose love over negativity. The crowd had applauded. My mother had wiped away proud tears. The camera panned across the room, and I saw my extended family nodding along, buying every word. Jennifer paused the video. I'm so sorry, Amanda. None of that is true. I've never seen you be anything but kind to Stephanie. But everyone believed her. I felt like I'd been punched. Did my parents hear this? They were right there in the front row. And they said nothing. Jennifer shook her head sadly. I wanted you to know what you're dealing with. Stephanie hasn't just excluded you. She's destroyed your reputation with the whole family. I drove home in a daze. Marcus was already at my apartment making dinner. When he saw my face, he turned off the stove and wrapped me in his arms. I told him about the video, about the lies, about the complete character assassination. We're definitely going to Italy, he said firmly. And we're going to have the most beautiful, authentic wedding anyone has ever seen. Not because we're competing with them, but because you deserve something real after all this fake garbage. That Saturday, while my family gathered in Napa to celebrate Stephanie's elaborate production, Marcus and I would be in Tuscany, choosing ourselves and our love over their toxic dysfunction. The week before, our trip felt surreal. I moved through my days at work in a fog, smiling at colleagues, attending meetings, pretending everything was normal. At night, I'd lie awake thinking about Stephanie's speech, about my mother's face as she'd applauded those lies, about my father's cowardice in refusing to defend me. Harper came over the Tuesday before we left. She'd been tracking Stephanie's wedding preparations on social media like a detective, sending me screenshots with commentary. "Look at this," she said, showing me Stephanie's latest post. Ice sculptures of swans, actual swans made of ice, for an outdoor wedding in California in October where it will be 70 degrees. I laughed despite myself. That seems impractical. Your sister is all about the aesthetic, and zero about the substance. Kind of fitting, actually. Harper helped me pack for Italy. We chose simple, elegant pieces. Nothing too fancy, nothing that screamed bride. I'd found a dress at a boutique in the city, cream-colored linen, that fell just below my knees, with delicate embroidery at the neckline. It cost $200, which felt reasonable. Marcus bought a linen suit in soft gray. We looked like ourselves, just slightly elevated. The night before we left, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. The family group chat had been active all week with wedding updates, none of which I'd responded to. But this was a direct message. "I hope you understand why this had to happen. Stephanie's happiness comes first. Maybe someday you'll have a daughter and understand." I stared at that message for a long time. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that I'd never be important enough to prioritize, the complete dismissal of my pain. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Marcus and I flew out of San Francisco on Thursday morning. The flight was long, but I slept most of the way, exhausted from weeks of stress. When we landed in Florence, rented a car, and drove into the Tuscan countryside, something in my chest started to loosen. The landscape was impossibly beautiful. Rolling hills covered in grapevines, medieval stone farmhouses with terracotta roofs, narrow roads lined with cypress trees that seemed to point toward heaven. We stopped at a small roadside cafe for lunch and ate fresh pasta with truffle oil while overlooking a valley that looked like a painting. "This is perfect," Marcus said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "I'm glad we're doing this." "Me too." We arrived at our agriturismo, a working farm that rented rooms to tourists, late Thursday afternoon. Our room was simple but charming. Exposed wooden beams, whitewashed walls, a window that looked out over olive groves. The owner, a woman in her 60s named Lucia, brought us wine and cheese and told us about the villa where we'd be married. "It is very old," she said in accented English. "From the 1500s. Very romantic. You will love it." Friday, we explored the area. We drove to a nearby town, walked through cobblestone streets, bought fresh bread and local cheese from a market. We visited the villa, where our ceremony would take place the next day, just to see it in person. It exceeded every expectation. The main building was gorgeous ancient stone covered in climbing roses. The grounds included manicured gardens, a small chapel, and a terrace overlooking vineyard-covered hills that seemed to stretch forever. The light that afternoon was golden and warm, making everything glow. "This is where we'll get married," I said, softly, standing on the terrace. Marcus wrapped his arms around me from behind. No ice sculptures required. I laughed and leaned back against him, feeling peaceful for the first time in weeks. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. While my family was probably starting preparations in California, setting up the elaborate Napa venue, we had a leisurely breakfast at the agriturismo. Lucia made us fresh pastries and espresso, chatting happily about romance and young love. At noon, we drove to the villa. Our photographer, a local woman named Sophia, met us there. She was in her 40s, warm and efficient, and immediately put us at ease. The officiant arrived shortly after, an American expat who'd been living in Tuscany for 20 years and performed intimate ceremonies like ours several times a month. We had an hour to get ready. Marcus changed in one room while I used another. I put on my cream linen dress, simple sandals, and minimal makeup. Harper had helped me practice a natural, effortless look. I braided my hair loosely and added small, fresh flowers that Sophia had brought. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself, not because I looked different, but because I looked genuinely happy. The ceremony took place on the terrace at 2 in the afternoon. The October sunlight was perfect, warm but not hot, casting everything in that magical golden glow. Sophia positioned us with the Tuscan hills as our backdrop. The officiant spoke briefly about love and commitment and choosing partnership every day. Then Marcus and I exchanged the vows we'd written ourselves. I'd worked on mine for days, trying to capture everything I felt. When it was my turn to speak, I looked into Marcus's eyes and somehow managed not to cry. Marcus, you've seen me at my worst these past few weeks. You've watched me get hurt by people who should have protected me. And through all of it, you never once suggested I should be smaller, quieter, more convenient. You've celebrated my strength and held me through my pain. Today, I choose you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Because you see me and love what you see. I promise to honor you, support you, and choose you every single day for the rest of my life. Marcus's vows were simpler, but no less powerful. Amanda, you're the bravest person I know. Watching you survive your family's cruelty with grace has taught me what real strength looks like. I promise to always be on your team, to build a life with you that's based on honesty and respect, and to make sure you never doubt your worth again. We exchanged simple gold bands we'd bought together. The officiant pronounced us married. Marcus kissed me while Sophia's camera clicked away. And standing there on that terrace in Tuscany, surrounded by vineyards and ancient stone and golden light, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, completely, unreservedly happy. We spent an hour after the ceremony taking photos. Sophia was talented, moving us around the grounds, capturing candid moments and posed shots. My favorite was one she took of us walking hand in hand down a path lined with cypress trees, the sun streaming through the branches, both of us laughing at something Marcus had said. It looked like a scene from a movie, like the kind of wedding photo that makes you believe in love. When we finished, Sophia promised to send us the edited photos within a week. We thanked the officiant, tipped generously, and drove back to the agriturismo feeling giddy and light. That evening, over dinner at a local trattoria, I checked my phone for the first time all day. Harper had been texting updates from California. Stephanie's wedding was apparently in full swing. The venue was massive. The decorations were over the top. There were posts all over social media from various family members showing off the spectacle. Then Harper sent me a photo my mother had posted to Facebook. It showed the whole extended family gathered together, everyone dressed formally, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "All my family gathered to celebrate my baby girl, so blessed. All my family." When I'd been deliberately excluded, Marcus saw my face change. "What is it?" I showed him the post. He frowned. "That's incredibly hurtful." I stared at the photo for a long moment. Then I made a decision. I opened my own Instagram and selected my favorite photo from our ceremony. The one of us on the terrace, the Tuscan hills behind us, both of us looking at each other with genuine joy. I typed a simple caption, "Married the love of my life in Tuscany." Sometimes the best moments happen when you're not invited to the party. I hit post before I could second-guess myself. "Are you sure about that?" Marcus asked gently. "I'm sure. I'm not doing this to hurt them. I'm doing this to reclaim my own story." Within an hour, my post had 50 likes. Within 3 hours, it had been shared 200 times. By the time we went to bed that night, it had over 1,000 shares and comments pouring in from people I'd never met. Beautiful wedding. This is what real love looks like. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. Your family's loss. This looks infinitely better than any expensive production. That last wedding looks like a corporate event. Yours looks like actual love. I fell asleep with Marcus's arms around me, my phone still buzzing with notifications, feeling like maybe, just maybe, I'd done something right. Sunday morning, I woke to chaos. My phone had 63 missed calls, over 200 text messages, and my Instagram post had exploded overnight. It had been shared over 5,000 times. Someone with a large following had found it and reposted it with the caption, "This is how you handle family drama with grace." Marcus was already awake, reading something on his phone. He looked up when I stirred. "You're kind of going viral." "What?" He showed me his screen. A lifestyle blogger I'd never heard of, someone with 2 million followers, had shared my wedding photo. Her post had 30,000 likes and counting. The comments were overwhelming. "This is the most beautiful wedding photo I've ever seen." The simplicity and authenticity completely outshine the expensive production wedding. Real love wins every time. I need the story behind this. Who isn't invited to a party and responds by creating something this stunning? She deserves all the happiness. That other wedding looked cold and transactional. But it wasn't just positive attention. Some comments were comparing my wedding directly to Stephanie's. Someone had apparently connected the dots, found photos from Stephanie's Napa wedding, and was posting them side by side with mine. The contrast was stark. Stephanie's photos showed elaborate decorations, massive floral arrangements, ice sculptures, hundreds of guests in formal wear. Everything looked expensive and impressive. But it also looked staged, performative, more like a luxury brand event than a wedding. My photos, by contrast, were simple. Just 2 people, beautiful scenery, and obvious genuine emotion. The internet had unanimously decided mine looked better. I scrolled through messages. Harper had sent a dozen texts. "Amanda, you're viral. This is amazing. Your family is losing it." There were messages from old college friends I hadn't spoken to in years, all congratulating me. There were messages from distant relatives asking what happened. And there were angry messages from my immediate family. My mother, "How dare you do this? You've embarrassed your sister on her wedding day. Take that post down immediately." My brother, "Really classy, Amanda. Way to make everything about you." Various aunts and uncles, "This is inappropriate. You should be ashamed." But there were also surprising messages of support. My cousin Jennifer, "I'm so proud of you. That photo is beautiful and you deserve all the happiness." Several family friends, "We had no idea you weren't invited. This is absolutely lovely. Congratulations." And most surprising, a message from Aunt Ruth, my mother's elderly aunt who I'd always liked but barely knew. About time someone stood up to this family's favoritism. "Beautiful wedding, dear." Marcus ordered breakfast from room service while I tried to process everything. We sat on our small balcony, eating fresh pastries and drinking coffee, watching the Tuscan countryside wake up around us, while my phone continued its relentless buzzing. "This is insane," I said. "I just wanted to share one photo." "You shared an authentic moment in a world full of fake ones." People respond to that. By midday, the situation had escalated further. News websites had picked up the story. I saw headlines, "Woman excluded from sister's wedding stages stunning Italian elopement." Sister's $650,000 wedding upstaged by simple Italian ceremony. The viral wedding photo everyone is talking about. Companies started reaching out. A wedding dress designer wanted to send me free dresses. A photographer equipment company wanted to feature my photos. A travel company wanted to sponsor a return trip to Italy. It was overwhelming and surreal. Then Harper called. "I need to tell you what's happening at home. It's a disaster." "What do you mean?" "Stephanie is apparently having a complete meltdown." "The wedding was yesterday, right?" "Well, your post went viral during their reception. People at the wedding were looking at their phones and seeing it. Some of Derek's family saw it. And apparently things got very uncomfortable." "How do you know all this?" "Your Aunt Ruth is texting me everything. She's at the wedding and she's been giving me play-by-play. Amanda, you need to hear this." Harper proceeded to tell me what had happened. During the reception, while guests were eating the elaborate 6-course dinner, Derek's 92-year-old grandmother Eleanor had stood up to make a toast. Eleanor was apparently the family matriarch, sharp as a tack, and controlled the family trust that Derek would eventually inherit. In her toast, Eleanor had asked pointedly where Derek's new sister-in-law was. When told I couldn't make it, Eleanor had said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "Couldn't make it or wasn't invited?" Because I raised my grandson to marry into a family with integrity. The table had gone silent. My mother had tried to laugh it off, but Eleanor hadn't smiled. She'd continued, "In my family, we don't exclude people. We certainly don't exclude immediate family from weddings. I'm disappointed to learn this is how things are done here." Several of Derek's relatives had apparently agreed vocally. Some had left the reception early. Derek's mother had pulled my mother aside, and there had been a heated conversation. Stephanie had spent the last hour of her $650,000 wedding crying in the bathroom while guests whispered and checked their phones to see my viral post. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me felt sad that it had come to this. "I didn't mean to ruin her wedding," I told Harper. "You didn't ruin anything. She ruined her own wedding by being cruel. Actions have consequences." Marcus and I spent the rest of Sunday trying to enjoy Italy despite the chaos back home. We visited a winery, took a cooking class, walked through medieval towns, but my phone never stopped. By evening, my Instagram post had 50,000 shares. I'd gained 25,000 new followers. 3 different production companies had reached out asking if I'd be interested in telling my story for a documentary or show. "This is completely surreal," I kept saying. That night, Aunt Ruth sent me a private message with photos attached. They were from Stephanie's wedding reception. One showed Derek's grandmother looking stern and unimpressed. Another showed my mother's face, tight with anger. A third showed Stephanie, makeup ruined from crying, being comforted by bridesmaids. Ruth's message said, "Thought you should see the truth of how last night ended. Derek's family is not impressed with Carol and Stephanie's behavior. There's talk that Eleanor is reconsidering some financial arrangements because she's so appalled by how you were treated. Your post didn't ruin the wedding. Their cruelty did. I'm proud of you, sweetheart." I showed Marcus. He read it twice, then looked at me seriously. "How do you feel about all this?" Honestly, relieved. For years I thought I was the problem. That if I just tried harder, was better, did more, my family would finally see me. But they never will. And that's not my fault. It's theirs. He pulled me close. No, it's definitely theirs. We spent the rest of our honeymoon trying to stay present, to enjoy the incredible place we were in, but the viral phenomenon followed us everywhere. By Wednesday, major morning shows were reaching out. Good Morning America wanted me for a segment on family dynamics. The Today Show wanted an interview. Newspapers wanted quotes. "I'll need to decide what to do about all this when we get home," I told Marcus as we packed to leave on our last day. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Flying back to America felt like returning to reality after a beautiful dream. When we landed in San Francisco, I had 300 new messages. The viral attention had continued building even as I'd tried to disconnect. My simple wedding post now had over 100,000 shares and had been featured on dozens of news sites. But the most surprising message was from Derek. It was brief. "Amanda, I owe you an apology. Can we talk?" We'd been home for 2 days when I finally agreed to meet Derek. He suggested a coffee shop in downtown San Francisco, neutral territory. Marcus wanted to come with me, but I needed to do this alone. Derek arrived looking exhausted. He'd always been handsome in that clean-cut country club way, but now he had dark circles under his eyes, and his usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled. He ordered a black coffee and sat across from me, not quite meeting my eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," he started. "I wasn't sure you would. I'm curious what you have to say." He took a deep breath. "My grandmother has been on my case since the wedding. She's furious about how you were treated. She's made it very clear that she's disappointed in me for not speaking up, and in Stephanie's family for the exclusion. She's even suggested reconsidering some financial arrangements until she sees evidence that my new in-laws understand the value of family integrity." "So you're here because your grandmother told you to apologize?" "No." His voice was firmer now. "I'm here because she helped me see something I'd been avoiding. Amanda, I believe Stephanie's version of you. She told me you were jealous, difficult, always trying to compete with her. I never questioned it because why would I? She's my fiancée, now my wife. But then the wedding happened, and your post went viral, and my family started asking questions. And when I actually looked at the evidence, when I talked to people who know you, when I saw how you handled being excluded with grace instead of drama, I realized Stephanie lied to me. I felt my chest tighten. What exactly did she tell you? That you'd tried to sabotage our relationship, that you'd insulted me multiple times, that you'd caused scenes at family gatherings, that you'd told her she wasn't good enough for me, and that I was marrying beneath my family's standards. None of that was true, was it? I've barely spoken to Stephanie in the past year. I met you exactly twice, both times briefly at family dinners where I was polite and cordial. I've never caused a scene at any gathering, and I certainly never said anything about you or your family. I don't know you well enough to have opinions about your worth. Derek ran his hands through his hair. That's what my grandmother said. She asked how someone who's allegedly so jealous and dramatic managed to get excluded from a wedding, have her reputation destroyed, and respond by creating something beautiful without a single angry word to anyone. She said jealous people don't act like that. They lash out. You didn't. I don't believe in meeting cruelty with cruelty. Stephanie does. I'm starting to see that. He looked miserable. The wedding was a disaster, Amanda. Even before your post went viral, my grandmother's toast embarrassed everyone. Several of my relatives left early. My mother pulled me aside and told me she was concerned about the family dynamics I'd married into. Then people started seeing your post, and the whispers got louder. Stephanie spent the end of our reception having a meltdown. Our honeymoon has been cut short because my grandmother essentially demanded we come home and address this situation. I don't know what you want me to say. I want to know if you'll consider meeting my grandmother. She's been asking about you. She says you have integrity, and she'd like to get to know you. She feels terrible that her grandson married into a family that would treat you this way. Derek, I appreciate the apology, but I don't owe your family or Stephanie's family anything. I'm moving forward with my life. I understand. But for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I should have asked more questions. I should have insisted you be invited. I let Stephanie control the narrative, and that was wrong. After Derek left, I sat in the coffee shop for a long time, processing. My phone buzzed with another message from Harper. Have you seen the latest? Stephanie deleted all her wedding posts. People were commenting asking why you weren't there. The next day, Good Morning America called again. This time, I answered. The producer was enthusiastic and respectful. They wanted to do a segment on family scapegoating and the courage it takes to create your own happiness. They promised I'd have full control over my narrative, no ambush questions, just a chance to tell my story. I talked to Marcus about it that evening. Part of me wants to just let this fade away, but another part of me thinks maybe sharing my story could help other people who are dealing with similar family situations. Then do it. You're not doing it for revenge. You're doing it to help people understand that you don't have to accept mistreatment from family just because they're family. I agreed to the interview. They scheduled it for the following Monday, giving me a week to prepare. In that week, the viral attention continued, but started to shift. Instead of just sharing my wedding photo, people were sharing their own stories of family exclusion, scapegoating, and finding peace outside toxic family systems. My Instagram comments became a support group of sorts, with hundreds of people sharing painful experiences and encouraging each other. I started reading more about family scapegoating, golden child dynamics, and narcissistic family systems. So much of what I read described my exact experience. The responsible child who can never do enough. The favored child who can do no wrong. The parent who enables the dysfunction. I wasn't alone in this. Thousands of people had lived versions of my story. The interview itself was less intimidating than I'd expected. The host was warm and prepared. She'd clearly done her research. We sat in a comfortable studio set that looked like someone's living room. The conversation flowed naturally. She asked about my childhood, about the pattern of favoritism, about the wedding exclusion. She asked how I'd decided to go to Italy. I explained that it wasn't about competition or revenge, it was about refusing to hide or feel ashamed. It was about creating something beautiful and authentic for myself when my family had tried to make me feel small and unwanted. What would you say to people watching this who are dealing with similar family situations? She asked. I looked directly at the camera. I'd say that you don't have to accept cruelty just because it comes from family. You don't have to keep trying to earn love from people who are incapable of giving it. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop participating in your own mistreatment. Create your own version of family, your own version of happiness. You deserve to be celebrated, not just tolerated. The segment aired the following Wednesday and immediately went viral again. Clips were shared across every social media platform. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out sharing their own stories. I read messages from people who'd been excluded from family events, who'd been scapegoated their whole lives, who'd finally found the courage to set boundaries with toxic family members. But the professional opportunities that followed were even more surprising. A lifestyle brand that focused on mental health and wellness wanted me to partner with them on a campaign about self-worth and setting boundaries. A publishing house reached out asking if I'd be interested in writing a book about navigating family dysfunction. Several organizations that worked with people dealing with family estrangement wanted me to speak at their events. Most meaningfully, I started a blog called Chosen Family Chronicles. I wrote about my experiences, about the process of healing from family trauma, about building a life based on authenticity rather than approval seeking. Within a month, I had 50,000 subscribers. My career benefited too. My marketing firm promoted me to senior director, partly because of my increased profile, and partly because I'd inadvertently demonstrated expert-level skills in authentic storytelling and audience engagement. My salary increased by 30%. Marcus and I started looking at bigger apartments. We talked seriously about starting a family of our own someday. Life was moving forward in ways I'd never imagined. Then, 2 weeks after the Good Morning America interview, I received a package. There was no return address, just my name written in elegant script. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery and a check for $20,000. The note read, "Dear Amanda, I am Eleanor, Derek's grandmother. I cannot undo your family's cruelty, but I can invest in your future. Use this to build something beautiful. Your strength and grace remind me of myself at your age. I would very much like to meet you, if you're willing. With admiration and respect, Eleanor." I stared at the check, then at the note, then back at the check. $20,000 from a woman I'd never met, who'd stood up for me at a wedding I wasn't invited to, who saw through my family's dysfunction when they couldn't. Marcus came home to find me crying at the kitchen table. When I showed him the note and check, he sat down heavily. "That's incredible, and completely unexpected." The check was marked, "For the brave granddaughter-in-law I wish I'd met sooner." Marcus smiled at that. "She's claiming you as family. A stranger is claiming me as family while my actual family pretends I don't exist. Maybe that says everything about who deserves to be in your life." I wrote Eleanor a thank you note that evening. I told her I'd be honored to meet her, that her kindness meant more than she could know, that I'd use her generous gift to fund my work helping others navigate family estrangement. I enclosed photos from our Italian wedding. Her response came 3 days later. "Dear Amanda, your photos brought tears to my eyes. That is what a wedding should look like. Real joy, real love. I'm ashamed my grandson wasn't married with such authenticity, though I'm working on helping him see what genuine partnership requires. I'd love to have tea next Thursday if you're available. I'll send my driver to collect you. Warmly, Eleanor." That's how I found myself, on a Thursday afternoon, 4 weeks after my Italian elopement, sitting in the library of a Pacific Heights mansion having tea with a 92-year-old woman who'd shown me more family loyalty in one toast than my blood relatives had in 28 years. Eleanor's home was exactly what I'd expected. Old money elegance without ostentation. The library where we had tea was lined floor to ceiling with books, leather chairs positioned near tall windows overlooking the bay. Eleanor herself was petite but commanding, with white hair styled perfectly and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see right through any pretense. She poured tea from a silver service and studied me with open curiosity. "You're exactly as I imagined. poised, thoughtful, and carrying yourself with quiet dignity despite what you've endured. Thank you for your incredible generosity, I started, but she waved a hand dismissively. Money is easy to give when you have it. Integrity is far more valuable, and you've demonstrated that in abundance. Tell me, how are you really doing with all of this? Something about her directness made me honest. Some days I'm fine. I'm building a good life with Marcus. My career is thriving, and I'm genuinely happy. Other days I grieve the family I wish I'd had. The one where being excluded and lied about wasn't acceptable. Where someone would have stood up for me. Eleanor nodded knowingly. I understand that grief. I was the scapegoat in my own family decades ago. My younger sister was beautiful and charming. I was practical and outspoken. When I married for love, instead of accepting the society match my parents preferred, they excluded me from family events for 3 years. Eventually, I built my own life, my own family, and stopped waiting for their approval. It was the most painful and most liberating thing I ever did. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about building a life on her own terms, about the strength required to walk away from toxic family dynamics, about the peace that comes from surrounding yourself with people who value you. She asked detailed questions about my blog, my book plans, my goals for the future. Before I left, she said something that shifted my entire perspective. Amanda, your family made a choice when they excluded you. They chose comfort over courage, the easy lie over the hard truth. But you also get to make a choice. You can spend your energy trying to make them see you, or you can spend it building something meaningful that doesn't require their validation. Only one of those options leads to peace. I choose peace, I said. Good. She smiled. Now, I have a proposition for you. I'd like to fund a foundation in your name focused on supporting people dealing with family estrangement. Not a large thing, just enough to provide resources, counseling referrals, community building. You'd run it however you see fit. I'd simply like to invest in work that matters. I couldn't speak for a moment. Eleanor, that's extraordinarily generous. It's selfish, actually. I'm 92 years old. I've spent decades giving money to institutions that put my name on buildings. I'd rather invest in a person doing work that will actually change lives. Think about it. No pressure. I drove home in a daze and told Marcus everything. He listened quietly, then said, "You need to do this. This is your calling. This whole painful experience is leading somewhere meaningful." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about all the messages I'd received, all the people who'd shared their stories of being scapegoated, excluded, told they were too sensitive or too difficult or too much. What if I could actually help them? What if I could turn my pain into something that prevented others from suffering in silence? The next morning, I called my mother. I don't know what I expected. Maybe an apology. Maybe an acknowledgement that they'd handled things badly. Maybe just basic human decency. What I got was immediate hostility. Your father and I have decided we're not speaking to you until you apologize for humiliating your sister. Apologize for getting married? Apologize for posting that photo to make her look bad. Apologize for turning this into a media circus. Apologize for being selfish and vindictive. I took a deep breath. Mom, I was excluded from a family wedding. I was lied about. My character was assassinated to justify that exclusion. And instead of apologizing or acknowledging any wrongdoing, you're demanding, I apologize for living my life? Stephanie was devastated. Her wedding was ruined because you couldn't let her have one day without making it about you. I made nothing about me. I got married on the other side of the world during the same weekend. I posted one photo with a simple caption. The fact that people responded to authenticity over performance isn't my fault. We need you to be the bigger person here, Amanda. We need you to apologize and take responsibility for the damage you've caused to this family. That's when I understood with complete clarity. This would never change. They would always need a scapegoat, and I would always be cast in that role unless I refused to play. So I did. No, I said calmly. I won't apologize for existing. I won't apologize for creating something beautiful. And I won't continue participating in a family dynamic where I'm expected to absorb everyone's dysfunction and call it love. I'm done. If you hang up this phone, you're not welcome in this family anymore. Then I guess I'm not welcome. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately started shaking. Marcus, who'd been listening from across the room, came over and held me while I cried. Not tears of sadness, really. Tears of release. The painful ripping away of hope that things might someday be different. But I'd barely caught my breath when my phone rang again. This time it was my father. When I answered, his voice was quiet, almost pleading. Amanda, please don't do this. Please don't cut yourself off from the family. Dad, I didn't cut myself off. I was cut off when I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding. I'm just finally accepting reality instead of pretending it's something else. Your mother is upset. She doesn't handle stress well. Just apologize and we can move past this. Why is it always my responsibility to apologize? Why am I always the one who has to be the bigger person? Why is maintaining a relationship with me never worth the discomfort of holding Stephanie accountable? Silence. Then, I don't know how to fix this. You could start by admitting that what happened was wrong, that excluding me was cruel, that lying about my character was unacceptable. You could start by actually being my father instead of just Carol's husband. More silence. Finally, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology, Dad. That's a dismissal of my legitimate pain. I don't know what else to say. Then, I guess we don't have anything else to talk about. I hung up feeling hollowed out but strangely free. The family I'd spent 28 years trying to belong to had finally made it clear. There was no place for me there. And instead of that destroying me, it liberated me. That evening, Carol sent a group text to the extended family, excluding me from the thread but not before Harper screenshotted it and sent it to me. The message read, "Due to Amanda's recent behavior and unwillingness to take responsibility for the pain she's caused, we've decided she's no longer welcome at family events. We ask that everyone respect this decision and not engage with her drama." Within an hour, I received messages from various family members. Some supported Carol's decision. Some expressed confusion. Some privately apologized, but said they couldn't publicly oppose Carol. And a few, like Aunt Ruth and Cousin Jennifer, sent messages of support saying they refused to participate in the scapegoating anymore. Ruth's message was particularly powerful. I've watched Carol destroy your spirit for years, and I'm done enabling it. You're welcome at my home anytime. Consider this my formal resignation from dysfunctional family dynamics. That night, Marcus and I made a decision. We'd host our own Thanksgiving. We'd invite the family members who'd shown us genuine support, our close friends, and anyone else who wanted to celebrate with people who actually valued them. We'd create our own tradition based on authenticity and mutual respect instead of obligation and toxicity. But the week wasn't done with surprises. Derek called again, this time asking if he and my grandmother could meet me together. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at Eleanor's house. Derek looked even worse than before, like he hadn't been sleeping. Eleanor looked concerned for him in a way that reminded me she truly loved her grandson, even when she was disappointed in his choices. I need to tell you something. Derek started without preamble. Stephanie and I are in marriage counseling. Things have been very difficult since the wedding. My family's reaction to how you were treated, the viral attention, the scrutiny on our relationship. Stephanie's been defensive and angry, blaming everyone but herself. I've been trying to understand how I missed so many red flags. I'm sorry you're going through that, but I'm not sure why you're telling me. Because my grandmother has been helping me see patterns I was blind to. Stephanie lies easily. She manipulates situations to make herself the victim. She needs to be the center of attention always. And she's cruel to people she perceives as threats. I watched her destroy your reputation with our family, and I said nothing. I participated in your exclusion. I need you to know I see that now, and I'm ashamed. Eleanor spoke up then. Amanda, I don't expect you to forgive my grandson or absolve him of responsibility. But I wanted you to hear directly that he's beginning to understand the dysfunction he married into and his role in perpetuating it. Growth is slow and painful, but it's happening. I appreciate you telling me this. Truly. But my focus is on building my own life now, not on vindicating myself to people who should have seen the truth all along. I understand. Derek stood to leave. I just wanted you to know that some of us are trying to do better, even if it's too late. After he left, Eleanor poured more tea. That was difficult for him to admit. He's realizing he may have made a terrible mistake in who he married. That's not my problem to solve. No, it isn't. But it does mean you were right all along, and every single person who doubted you was wrong. Sometimes that matters. I left Eleanor's house feeling emotionally exhausted but strangely validated. Everything I'd known in my gut, everything I'd been told was just my perception or my sensitivity or my jealousy, had been true. I hadn't been crazy or difficult or dramatic. I'd been the only one willing to see the dysfunction for what it was. That night, I accepted Eleanor's offer to fund the foundation. I also accepted the book deal, and I scheduled 3 speaking engagements for early next year. I was turning my pain into purpose, my exclusion into advocacy, my family's rejection into a platform for helping others. Marcus found me at midnight, sitting at my laptop, outlining the first chapter of my book. He read over my shoulder, then kissed the top of my head. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. For the first time in my life, I'm genuinely proud of myself. Not for achieving things or being perfect or earning approval, just for surviving and choosing to build something good from the wreckage. That's the strongest thing you could possibly do. The months following my final conversation with my parents unfolded in ways I never could have anticipated. My blog continued growing, reaching over 100,000 subscribers by December. I posted twice weekly, writing about setting boundaries, recognizing toxic family patterns, building chosen family, and finding self-worth outside of parental approval. The response was overwhelming. Every post generated hundreds of comments from people sharing their own stories, thanking me for putting words to their experiences, finding comfort in knowing they weren't alone. The book proposal I'd submitted to the publishing house was accepted with enthusiasm. They offered me a $75,000 advance for a memoir about family scapegoating and the journey to self-acceptance. My editor, a woman named Patricia, who'd gone through her own family estrangement, was passionate about the project. We're not just publishing a personal story, she told me during our first meeting. We're creating a resource for thousands of people who need permission to choose themselves over toxic family obligations. My marketing career flourished too. The firm I worked for promoted me again, this time to vice president. My viral story and growing platform had brought the company significant positive attention. More importantly, I'd proven I understood authentic storytelling and genuine audience engagement in ways that translated directly to successful campaigns. My salary reached 6 figures for the first time. Marcus and I moved into a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood, with tree-lined streets and a sense of community. We painted the walls warm colors, filled the rooms with plants and comfortable furniture, created a space that felt wholly ours. No family photos on the walls except ones of us, our friends, and the chosen family we were building. The 2nd bedroom became my office, where I wrote blog posts and book chapters and answered messages from people all over the world who'd found my story and wanted to share theirs. But the most meaningful development came from Eleanor. True to her word, she funded the foundation. We called it the Olive Branch Foundation, with a mission of supporting people dealing with family estrangement through counseling resources, support groups, and educational materials about healthy family dynamics. I hired 2 part-time staff members, both therapists specializing in family trauma. We launched a website with free resources. Within 3 months, we'd received over 5,000 requests for support. Eleanor and I met regularly for tea. She'd become something like a grandmother to me, the wise elder figure I'd never had. She shared stories from her long life, offered perspective when I felt overwhelmed, and reminded me constantly that I was worthy of love and respect simply for existing, not for performing or achieving. One afternoon in late January, nearly 4 months after my Italian wedding, Eleanor asked me a direct question. "Have you heard from your family at all?" Not directly, but Harper keeps me updated on the family gossip. And Stephanie and Derek are apparently still in counseling. There are rumors their marriage is struggling. Derek has moved into the guest bedroom permanently. His family has become noticeably cooler towards Stephanie and my mother. Several business opportunities that Derek's father had discussed with my dad have quietly disappeared. My mother posts less on social media now. Stephanie's Instagram presence has become sporadic and less polished. They're dealing with consequences, I guess. How do you feel about that? I considered the question carefully. Honestly, I don't feel triumphant or vindicated. I just feel sad that it had to go this far, that they couldn't see the damage they were doing until it affected them personally. But I also feel free from the constant anxiety of trying to earn their approval, free from walking on eggshells, free from being responsible for everyone else's emotions while mine were completely dismissed. That's wisdom, Eleanor said approvingly. Freedom over revenge, peace over vindication. Thanksgiving that year was different. Marcus and I hosted 15 people in our new apartment. Aunt Ruth came, along with cousin Jennifer and her husband. Harper and several of our closest friends came. Eleanor came with her own driver, bringing expensive wine and staying for hours. We'd also invited 3 people I'd met through my blog work, all dealing with family estrangement during the holidays. There were no passive-aggressive comments, no subtle digs disguised as concern, no favoritism or comparing or competition. Just people who genuinely liked each other sharing a meal and celebrating what they were actually grateful for. I gave a short toast before dinner, my voice only shaking slightly. I'm grateful for everyone in this room. You've shown me that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up for each other, seeing each other clearly, and choosing love over convenience. Thank you for choosing me. The room erupted in affirmation and raised glasses. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. Ruth wiped away tears. Eleanor nodded her approval. After dinner, while clearing dishes, Ruth pulled me aside. Your mother called me last week. She wanted me to convince you to apologize and come back to the family. What did you say? I told her that Amanda has nothing to apologize for, and that she should be ashamed of herself for allowing her daughter to be treated so poorly. I also told her I wouldn't be attending any family events where you weren't welcome, and that several others felt the same way. She wasn't pleased. How do you feel about that? Ruth smiled. I feel free. I've enabled Carol's behavior for decades because she's my niece, and I thought family meant accepting whatever treatment you received. But watching you set boundaries gave me permission to do the same. At 78 years old, I'm finally standing up for what's right. Better late than never. The first draft of my book was completed in February. Patricia loved it. She scheduled publication for September, timing it to hit the market before the holiday season when family stress peaks. The marketing team wanted to do a book tour. They'd already scheduled appearances in 10 cities, including a talk at a major women's conference. My speaking engagements multiplied. I spoke at universities about navigating family dysfunction as a young adult. I spoke at therapy conferences about the long-term effects of family scapegoating. I spoke at women's groups about finding self-worth outside of parental approval. Every speech ended with a long line of people wanting to share their own stories, to thank me, to tell me I'd given them language for experiences they'd never been able to articulate. In March, something unexpected happened. Derek showed up at my office unannounced. My assistant buzzed to let me know someone claiming to be my brother-in-law was in the lobby. I almost said to turn him away, but curiosity won. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, had deep circles under his eyes, and his usually immaculate appearance was slightly rumpled. I offered him coffee, which he accepted gratefully. We sat in my office, an awkward silence stretching between us. I'm leaving Stephanie, he said abruptly. I've filed for divorce. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. It's the right thing. My grandmother was right about everything. Stephanie is incapable of taking accountability for anything. She's blamed you, blamed me, blamed my family, blamed the media, blamed everyone except herself for the problems in our marriage. The counseling has been useless because she refuses to acknowledge any fault. I can't build a life with someone who lives in a completely fictional version of reality. Why are you telling me this? Because you tried to warn me, in your own way. You didn't cause drama or make scenes. You just quietly refused to participate in the dysfunction. And every single person, including me, punished you for it. I need you to know that I see that now. I see everything clearly now. And I'm ashamed it took this long. I appreciate you saying that, but my life has moved forward. I'm not interested in rehashing the past or getting pulled back into family drama. I understand. I just wanted you to know. Also, my grandmother wanted me to tell you she's planning to increase the foundation funding. She's been very impressed with the work you're doing. After Derek left, I sat in my office for a long time, processing. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sad for him. Trapped in a marriage built on lies and image management. Part of me felt grateful that I'd escaped that whole toxic system before it consumed me completely. That evening, I told Marcus about Derek's visit. He listened carefully, then asked the question I'd been avoiding. Do you think there's any chance your family will ever apologize or try to make amends? Honestly, no. They'd have to admit they were wrong, that they failed me, that their golden child isn't who they thought she was. That level of honesty would shatter their entire worldview. It's easier to just keep blaming me and moving forward as if I never existed. Does that bother you? Less than it used to. I'm building something real. A life based on authenticity and mutual respect. A career helping people navigate exactly what I went through. A marriage where I'm valued and celebrated. I don't need their approval anymore. I don't even want it. What I wanted was to be seen and loved for who I actually am, and they're incapable of that. But other people aren't. I found my people. In April, the foundation received a donation that changed everything. An anonymous donor gave $500,000 with a note that read, "For the work of helping others find freedom from toxic family systems, use it to expand your reach." The handwriting looked suspiciously like Eleanor's, though she denied it with a mischievous smile when I asked. With that funding, we expanded significantly. We hired 4 more staff members, launched regional support groups in 6 cities, created an online counseling platform, and developed educational resources for therapists working with family estrangement issues. The foundation went from a small project to a legitimate organization making measurable impact. One evening in late May, sitting on our apartment balcony with Marcus, watching the sunset, I felt something I'd been chasing my whole life: contentment. Not the performance of happiness, not the desperate grasping for approval, just genuine, quiet peace. Marcus noticed. "You look relaxed." I am. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do, surrounded by people who value me. It took getting excluded from a wedding to find my way here, but I wouldn't change it. Even knowing how much it hurt? Even knowing that. The pain was the catalyst. It forced me to stop accepting cruelty as love. It pushed me out of a system that was slowly destroying me. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing. That should be the closing line of your book. Maybe it will be. The book launched in September to unexpected success. It debuted on several bestseller lists. Reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Readers connected deeply with the message that you don't owe allegiance to people who mistreat you, even if they're family. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see you clearly. The book tour was exhausting, but meaningful. In every city, audiences packed the venues. They asked thoughtful questions. They shared their own stories. They thanked me for giving them permission to prioritize their own well-being over family obligation. Several times, people approached me after events to say I'd helped them understand they weren't crazy, that their family dynamics were genuinely dysfunctional, that they deserved better. In Portland, a woman in her 50s told me she'd been the family scapegoat for decades. Reading my book had given her the courage to finally set boundaries with her mother and siblings. For the first time in her life, she felt free. In Chicago, a young man told me he'd been excluded from his sister's wedding for being gay. My story had helped him understand that his family's rejection wasn't about his worth, but about their limitations. In Boston, a therapist told me she was using my book with her clients to help them understand family scapegoating dynamics. It was becoming a resource in her practice. Each story reinforced what I already knew. My painful experience wasn't unique. Thousands of people were living versions of my story. And by sharing mine openly, I was helping them find their own paths to healing and freedom. By October, Exactly 1 year after my Italian wedding and my exclusion from Stephanie's wedding, my life looked completely different. My career was thriving, my marriage was strong, the foundation was helping hundreds of people. My book was selling steadily. I'd built a community of chosen family who genuinely cared about me. And then, 1 year to the day after everything changed, I received a letter. It came through my publisher, forwarded to my home address. The handwriting on the envelope was my mother's. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Marcus stood nearby, ready to support whatever I needed. Finally, I tore it open and read. The letter was 2 pages long. It wasn't an apology, not really. It was a justification wrapped in passive-aggressive language. Your father and I have been discussing the situation. We feel that perhaps everyone overreacted. Family is important, and we think it's time to move past old hurts. Stephanie and Derek are divorcing, and she's struggling. She could use your support. Perhaps we could all have dinner and start fresh. It's been a year. Surely that's enough time for everyone to heal. There was no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. No recognition of the pain they'd caused. No apology for the exclusion or the lies or the character assassination. Just an assumption that time had erased the damage and an expectation that I'd come back to support the sister who'd destroyed my reputation. I handed the letter to Marcus. He read it, his expression darkening. They haven't changed at all. No, they haven't. And they never will. Are you going to respond? I thought about it carefully. Then I pulled out a piece of paper and wrote a brief reply. Mom and Dad, I've built a good life this past year. A life based on honesty, respect, and mutual support. A life where I'm valued for who I am, not tolerated despite who I am. You've made it clear over decades that there's no place for me in your version of family unless I'm willing to be the scapegoat. I'm not willing anymore. I wish you well, but I'm moving forward without you. Amanda. I mailed it the next day and felt nothing but relief. That weekend, Marcus and I returned to Italy for our 1-year anniversary. We stayed at the same agriturismo, visited the same villa, took photos in the same spots. But this time, we weren't running from anything. We were celebrating everything we'd built. The photos from that trip captured 2 people who were genuinely happy, genuinely free, genuinely at peace. I posted one photo, a year after the original post that went viral. The caption read, 1 year ago, I was uninvited from a wedding. Today, I'm celebrating a marriage built on authenticity, respect, and chosen love. To everyone who's ever felt excluded, your absence from toxic spaces isn't rejection, it's protection. Build your own table. The response was just as overwhelming as the first time, but I barely checked it. I was too busy living my life to need validation from strangers anymore. Sitting here now, nearly 2 years after everything changed, I can see the full arc of the story clearly. What felt like the worst thing that ever happened to me, being excluded from my sister's wedding and having my character destroyed, was actually the catalyst for the best chapter of my life. The foundation is thriving. We've helped over 2,000 people navigate family estrangement with therapy resources, support groups, and practical guidance. We've trained hundreds of therapists in recognizing and addressing family scapegoating dynamics. We've created educational materials that are being used in universities and counseling centers across the country. Eleanor's initial investment, combined with grants and donations, has allowed us to expand to 12 cities with plans for more. My second book is nearly finished. This one focuses specifically on building chosen family and creating traditions that honor authenticity over obligation. My publisher is already excited about it. The speaking requests keep coming. I've become a recognizable voice in conversations about family dysfunction and the courage required to choose yourself. My career reached heights I never imagined. I'm now executive vice president at my firm, leading a team of 12 talented people. I'm financially stable in ways I never was before. Marcus and I bought a house last month, a beautiful craftsman with a yard and a porch swing, and room for the family we're planning to start. But more than the professional success or financial stability, I've found something more valuable: peace. I wake up every morning knowing I'm loved and valued by people who see me clearly. I go through my days without the constant anxiety of trying to earn impossible approval. I'm building a life on my own terms, surrounded by people who celebrate rather than tolerate me. My chosen family has grown. Eleanor is like the grandmother I always wished I'd had. Ruth and Jennifer are regulars at our dinner table. Harper is my daughter's future godmother, though that daughter doesn't exist yet. The friends we've made through the foundation, people who understand the complex pain of family estrangement, have become genuine community. We celebrate holidays together, support each other through difficulties, and show up consistently with love and respect. As for my birth family, I've heard updates occasionally through people who maintain contact with both sides. Stephanie and Derek's divorce was finalized 6 months ago. It was apparently contentious, with Derek's family making it clear they held Stephanie and my mother responsible for the dysfunction. Stephanie moved back home with Carol and Thomas. She works at a boutique again and keeps a much lower profile on social media. My mother has stopped posting about her perfect family. She apparently asks Ruth about me sometimes, fishing for information without directly reaching out. Ruth tells her the same thing every time. Amanda is thriving, and she's not interested in reconnecting unless there's genuine acknowledgement of wrongdoing and meaningful change. That acknowledgement has never come. My father sent one more letter about 6 months ago. This one was slightly different. He didn't ask me to come back to the family. He just said he was proud of what I'd built and sorry he hadn't been strong enough to stand up for me when it mattered. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd received. I wrote back thanking him for saying that, but maintaining my boundaries. We're not in contact, but there's a small opening there if he ever finds the courage to truly make amends. Derek and I have developed an unlikely acquaintance. Not a friendship exactly, but a mutual respect. He's done genuine work in therapy, acknowledging his role in the dysfunction and working to be better. He and Eleanor have repaired their relationship. He's dating someone new, a woman who apparently has strong boundaries and doesn't tolerate dishonesty. Eleanor approves. We exchange Christmas cards and occasionally meet for coffee when he wants advice about navigating relationships after toxic family patterns. He's trying to break the cycle, which I respect. The viral wedding photo still circulates occasionally. Every few months, it pops up again on some new platform with captions about grace in the face of cruelty or choosing yourself over toxic family. Sometimes people recognize me from it. They stop me at coffee shops or bookstores to say it inspired them or helped them. I'm always gracious but brief. That photo was a moment of transformation, but it's not my identity. I'm so much more than the woman who was uninvited to a wedding. Marcus and I are planning a vow renewal ceremony for our 5th anniversary. Nothing elaborate, just us and our chosen family at the same villa in Tuscany. Eleanor has already said she'll come if she's still able. Ruth is planning the menu. Harper is insisting on making a speech. It will be perfect because it will be real, full of people who genuinely love us, and relationships built on honesty and mutual respect. The life lessons from this experience are ones I share constantly through my writing and speaking. Here's what I've learned. You cannot force people to value you. No amount of achievement, perfection, or self-sacrifice will make someone see your worth if they're determined not to. The most loving thing you can do for yourself is stop trying to earn approval from people who are fundamentally incapable of giving it. Family is not defined by blood. It's defined by consistent love, respect, and support. The people who show up for you, who see you clearly and celebrate who you are, those are your real family. Sometimes you're born into your family. Sometimes you have to build it yourself. Both are valid. Being excluded from toxic spaces is protection, not rejection. When people who mistreat you decide you're no longer welcome, they're actually doing you a favor. They're removing you from a dynamic that was harming you. The pain of exclusion is real and valid, but on the other side of that pain is freedom. Your worth is inherent, not earned. You don't have to perform or achieve or people please to deserve love and respect. You deserve those things simply because you exist. Any relationship that requires you to shrink yourself, accept mistreatment, or constantly prove your value is not a relationship worth maintaining. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing. Being uninvited from my sister's wedding devastated me. It also forced me to finally stop accepting cruelty as love. It pushed me to create my own version of happiness. It led me to work that matters and relationships that honor my humanity. I wouldn't change any of it. To everyone who's ever been the family scapegoat, who's been excluded or lied about or made to feel like the problem, I want you to know you're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not difficult. You're simply refusing to participate in your own mistreatment, and that feels threatening to people invested in maintaining dysfunction. Your healing matters. Your peace matters. Your freedom matters. Build your own table. Invite people who value you. Create traditions based on authenticity rather than obligation. Choose yourself, even when it's painful, especially when it's painful. The life waiting for you on the other side of that choice is worth every difficult moment of the journey there. My sister got her $650,000 wedding. The elaborate production, the expensive venue, the celebrity performer, the ice sculptures, all of it designed to impress people and create the appearance of perfection. Within a year, her marriage was over, her reputation was damaged, and she was back living with our parents, dealing with the consequences of prioritizing image over substance. I got a $3,000 elopement in Tuscany. Simple, intimate, real. And I also got freedom from a toxic family system, a career helping others, genuine community, lasting peace, and a marriage that gets stronger every year because it's built on honesty and mutual respect. I know which one I'd choose every single time. Being uninvited was the beginning of the best chapter of my life. Sometimes you have to be pushed out of the wrong story to find your way into the right one. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been excluded by family or made to feel like the problem in a dysfunctional system? How did you find your way to healing? What helped you recognize that the issue wasn't your worth but their inability to see it? Share your story in the comments. Your experience matters, and sharing it might help someone else who's struggling right now. If this story resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you'd like this video, subscribe for more content about healing from family dysfunction and building authentic relationships, and share this with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone in this experience. Sometimes knowing one other person understands can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community we're building together. A community based on seeing each other clearly and supporting each other genuinely. I'm honored to be on this journey with you. May you find the courage to choose yourself, the wisdom to recognize your worth, and the freedom to build a life that honors your authentic self. You deserve nothing less.